Hello, everyone. We no normal intro today. We've got a very special episode today. We're recording live from Kentucky in Cryptid Con in Lexington. We're so happy to be here today, and with the very first guest ever. He said he wanted to be the very first guest on my show, and when the time finally came, we finally got him here. So please, everyone, welcome the Bigfoot of the year of 2023, one of the best people I know, Marc Myrsell.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, thank you. Man, I know. You should see the crowd here. It's huge. So thanks. I didn't know I was like your first.
Well, yeah, you a few years ago when you said you wanted to be my very first, you wanted to be the very first guest on my show. You're like, okay, well, we'll make you the very first guest.
Yeah, but you didn't need to hold out all this time.
I needed to hold out all this time because we weren't. I wasn't planning on being like guests early on kind of thing because you don't want to be like a guest on episode 5 and then there's like people that might be expecting it kind of thing.
Okay.
You have like episodes of stuff and then like guests like sprinkled in there and stuff like that.
Well, thanks, but you probably tell that to all the girls.
So. No, only the ones I really like.
Nice.
All right, so well, first off, like how you doing? Like how's things been for you this past year?
Good. It's been good. As you know, I'm a land surveyor. And that's my main bread and butter. But also, my family and I run the Westport Aquarium, Washington State's oldest public aquarium, still in operation, built in 1957. So with that and kids, we're busy. we're super busy.
I bet.
But just like with life and that kind of thing. But we have Bigfootery wise and other history research wise. I've 2 or 3 really exciting projects coming along.
Ooh.
So yeah.
Well, before we even get into those, I've always been curious to know, like, how did you get into owning an aquarium?
Oh well, I don't know, but I'll tell you. I'll tell you what I remember. I'll tell you what I remember.
Okay.
Let's see. Well, I guess the best way to start is that I grew up with mom and dad, and with my 3 older sisters. And mom and dad, the way I grew up, we would find this orphaned old building, and sometimes it was actually condemned, and we'd move into it, and maybe there was like a kitchen and maybe there was a bathroom, and then we make it beautiful and then sell it and move on to some other derelict project. So I grew up with renovation a lot.
Okay.
And it was just for fun, and so I'm very, very prone to that. And so I ended up marrying probably the best person in the world. And she's right there along with me. And we come up with all these crazy ideas. Go to the library and find an old book on Civil War submarines. It's like, hey, honey, this weekend, let's build a submarine. And she's like, sure. So it was actually a renovation project in Aberdeen, Washington. And it was kind of dangerous and dirty. And Catherine and the kids needed something to do sometimes, so they would just mosey around. Well, in Westport, they came across the Westport Aquarium, and it was like sometimes open, sometimes not, and nobody kind of knew what was going on. And so they on one trip, Catherine was like, man, if that's ever for sale, I'm buying it. And then we drove by, and there it was in the window, for sale. And we ended up buying it. So we knew nothing about aquarium work, but we're good on renovation. And so that was 2009, and ever since then we've been bringing it back to life.
Wow, 2009.
Yeah.
So, and how's it been during like the whole transition period? It's been pretty challenging trying to learn how to run an aquarium since you've never done it before.
Well, yeah, learning curve, but you learn quick.
Mm-hmm.
On when crisis issues would come up, my panic button was, I don't know, about 3 or 4 feet in diameter. But now my panic button has gotten to be the size of a dime.
Oh,
so
wow.
I've gotten a lot more efficient now.
I was with you a dime. I was saying that maybe like a silver dollar or something like that,
No.
but a dime, that's okay.
So yeah, we've gotten better at it. All of our fish are donated by local charter boat and commercial boat fishermen.
Okay.
So it's always changing. We've really gotten involved in a federal program called now it's called the West Coast Marine Mammal Stranding Network, and it's run out of NOAA Fisheries. And it's basically this network of volunteers working with biologists to respond to seals and sea lions and porpoises and occasionally a whale, dead or alive on the beach. And we monitor it and assess it, try to come up with the best outcome for the animal. With dead animals, we'll help with exams and that kind of thing. So since we volunteered our butt off so heavily with the Stranding Network, we eventually got our permit to take marine mammal parts, specifically bones. And I did that. Let's see, my first one was a harbor seal. And to take those parts after the exam, and then clean up the bones and rearticulate it. So I've done a number of skeletal rearticulations.
Wow.
So those are all. We do it, of course, for outreach and education. So we have a harbor seal, sea lion, 39-foot gray whale.
Is that the new one you just put up just recently? Within the past like month or so?
Yeah, well, yeah, she was sort of done about a year ago.
Okay.
But she stranded in 2013, and so we cleaned up her bones right away. But it wasn't until this whole museum virus shutdown kind of thing, like, let's put our whale together, right?
Yeah.
And so now she's done, and she's spectacular. Yeah,
wow.
It's a fun project.
It's pretty impressive that, if you, instead of being more than just an aquarium, you do things for like the local community with the wildlife, and you work with officials. It makes you really stand out a bit more than just normal aquarium of like, hey, come see our fish and dolphins, kind of thing. Be like, you do that and then some, especially with the locals and stuff like that. And I think that's fantastic.
Well, thanks. I feel like an aquarium, being a public attraction, kind of needs to.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a public perception, and I think that's one thing that kind of gave the rise to organizations like PETA and that kind of thing,
mm-hmm.
where these guys are just like fly-by-night circuses trying to make money off of these animals. And I got to say, for the majority, that's certainly not true. So with an aquarium, I feel like it's, in a sense, your obligation to make connections with the community, with, like you said, like with the government agency community that oversees ocean science and marine mammals and that kind of thing, but also just for the general public as well.
Yeah, it's good because especially when you get involved in stuff like that, that's like your name is then attached to it, something good, which then would hopefully bring in more business for you and stuff like that, and get your name out there. Be like, wait, there's an aquarium there, and they do all these cool things. Let's go check them out.
Yeah, that's certainly true. It does sort of put you on the map. One thing that it certainly has helped is the aquarium's reputation, because the reputation of the aquarium before we got it had kind of hit the skids for a while. So it has certainly helped out a lot.
Yeah, especially I bet, especially after COVID and stuff like that. Places like that probably started going down quickly, and hopefully places that needed to recover quickly enough to be able to thrive again. And thankfully, you were able to. You're still able to do it.
Well, business philosophy too. We have a running joke at the aquarium in our family that we're not nonprofit. We're just no profit. and so really it's the land surveying work that funds the aquarium, right? But we have played with that idea once in a while of becoming a nonprofit. And each time we think about it for around 7 or 8 seconds, and it's no, absolutely not. The reason why is when you're a nonprofit, you have a board, and then in theory you'd be the director, and the board meets once a month or once a quarter or whatever, and they make decisions about what the aquarium should do, and we're just too independent and firebrand.
And I think in some cases, especially in your circumstance, that's probably the best thing to do, because you are your own bosses. No one else can really tell you what to do. You guys make the decisions, and like no one else be like, I want to do this decision, and then people being like, maybe not. But you're like, I want to do this decision. It's gonna happen.
Yeah, it's true. And we are, when you go to the aquarium, it's obviously Mark and Catherine's aquarium, because it's very, very eclectic. Catherine has a long history of teaching and library work, and so there's always some sort of crazy cool project that is sometimes seemingly unrelated to aquarium work, but it's a project that the public can get involved in. Like, as an example, I can't remember how we got started with this, but we ended up with a old 1908 35 millimeter film projector, and it was from Bavaria before World War One,
Okay.
and it was sort of in parts and pieces. But it's hand cranked. It has an electric light bulb, but it's hand cranked. Yeah.
Okay.
And I had to get another projector. Miraculously, I found the exact same one on eBay, and I used it for parts and got it going together.
Oh,
so
well,
now
good.
one of the things that we're doing, and actually people have responded to it, where there's a method of direct animation, where you take a clear 35 millimeter strip of film and you have 3 sprocket holes, and that's your frame, and you draw in different, you can scratch, you can draw different frames and make your own animation on it, and then watch it immediately on the projector. So people have been having a lot of fun with that lately. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, this weird project seeming to have nothing to do with fish, but people come in and they're like, hey, you want to make a movie? And then they do.
Yeah, I mean, hey, whatever, helps, bring the people in and stuff like that. That's, if you do something fun like that, I mean, why not?
Yeah, sure. It does.
That's pretty cool. Man, and I guess you obviously, probably, enjoyed, owning an aquarium and all the fun stuff that goes along with it.
Yeah, I do. Still, after 15 years or so. Sometimes not at 3 a.m. when it's driving rain and the pumps have quit.
Oh no!
Down at the dock, and you're down
Oh.
there trying to not to get electrocuted and trying also not to let the fish die too. So anyway, it has its ups and downs.
So would you say that a lot of this like renovation stuff you were talking before, would you say that was probably like your main interest before Bigfoot and stuff like that? Or if not, like, what was your interest before
Well,
Bigfoot?
I gotta say, that brings up a good point, because an old friend of ours said, well, talking about me and Catherine, he's like, now I realize that you folks are addicted to projects, and I don't know, it's a joie de vivre kind of thing. It's like, grabbing life by the scruff of the neck and just doing it. So whatever, and I don't know how to say this. I don't watch a lot of TV.
Okay.
I'm kind of like a little high strung and high metabolism just by my easygoing nature. And so I'm also very creative. And so it's just projects. It's cool stuff. And it's like all over the board between, old building renovation, music, history, whatever.
Yeah, I have heard some of your music, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Again, it's unique.
Yeah, I mean, hey, sometimes we need a little bit of unique in this world of everyone just saying same thing. Let's throw something unique and crazy in there, kind of thing.
True. Yeah, that's true.
So how did you get into Bigfoot for you? What was the thing that grabbed you? Was it the PG film, like a lot of people, or was it something else?
Well, I was born in 1966. And this is sort of a reoccurring theme in a weird way, amongst a lot of Bigfoot folks. I grew up kind of coming of age in the early 70s, and pop culture was really having a renaissance at the time, and movies and books and TV and that kind of thing of the unexplained, lights in the sky or Nazca lines or pyramids and Bigfoot and all this kind of thing. And it really, when I was 6 or 7 or 8, I took to it, and I still do it. I still love the unexplained mysteries of life, and including Bigfoot. And I remember, regarding my main project that I've been working on, I remember Sasquatch Legend of Bigfoot, one of the seminal, Bigfoot classic movies.
Yeah.
And it was sort of like this docudrama of these dudes going out, I believe, into the wilds of British Columbia to look for Bigfoot. And then they would snap away, and sometimes they'd have these vignettes. And one of them was, up until recently, one of the best recreations of the Ape Canyon incident, of these miners getting attacked in their cabin by mountain devils, right? And so that was a thing in the movie. And I remember watching it when it was on a rerun on TV when I was a kid. And you see these dark, shadowy figures throwing rocks down from the cliff onto these miners. And I never forgot it. But it wasn't until a few years ago when what I say is the lower depths of the Dewey Decimal System in the library, where they have all those books about pyramids and everything, that I came across Nick Redfern's 3 Men Seeking Monsters.
Okay.
Great book. Wonderful book, and I've always felt like it should be made into a movie. And just briefly, Three Men Seeking Monsters is this great story of these three guys, including Nick, who get into an old van and they go, and they're somewhere around London or Devonshire, something like that. And they do a road trip. It's like a buddy road trip story going down to Cornwall to investigate an old story from the 1880s of the man monkey, of this large bipedal man-like ape in the trees around Cornwall. And so it's a great, great book. Later on in the book, Nick does bring up Ape Canyon and and a couple of other old stories. And his point being was that, like John Fort used to say, in incidences of high strangeness, if you look, if you're researching this and you tend to look around the general timeline and the general geographic area, more often than not, you'll find other seemingly unrelated events of high strangeness around this time, you know? So that idea really struck me. So I pulled a couple of old stories off the shelf. One of them nobody knows at all. It's occurred in a small town in Sheridan, Oregon, in Yamhill County. And the other one was Ape Canyon. And that's what I did. I just started looking around the timeline and the area, and I realized that with the Ape Canyon story, which I of course had heard of before, that the Ape Canyon story tends to get rewritten about, and the story doesn't necessarily change, but it's just republished in these little like 1 or 2 page things inserted into books like The Weird Pacific Northwest and that kind of thing. When I got into researching it, I found out there was this huge mountain, huge dearth of other information that really hadn't come to light before regarding the whole story. And then, frankly, it just kind of became my midlife crisis in a way. And I became obsessed with it.
Okay.
And so my wife jokes that it's a better midlife crisis instead of getting a red convertible and hot blonde or whatever.
Yeah, I could agree to that. That's okay. I think a lot more people would probably be happy about that.
I know, exactly.
All right, so cool. There also was one of my other questions too. You know, how you got in Ape Canyon and stuff like that. And obviously, you know, there it is right there.
The thing is similar to museum work, you know, because now I've more or less kind of become known as the Ape Canyon guy. Like running a museum, like if you run an aquarium or whatever, and be known for that, then people come in and like to the aquarium and say, hey, you know, there's this thing on the beach, or I have this old thing from my dad's closet that he said he got from the ocean in 1930 or whatever. What is it? And you tend to make a lot more contacts and you find out a lot more information once you put yourself out as, you know, being interested in a certain research project. Then people come to you.
Yeah.
And that has happened a lot.
And actually, you know what? That actually great to lead up to another question I had down here is like, what's some or one of your favorite stories that someone has come up to you, be like, yo, I know you're an aquarium, but also a Bigfoot guy. Like, here's my story kind of thing. Is there any story that you've had that like really like jumps out or you speaks to you? They're like, I always remember that one story or stuff. So
I think that let me cut that question into with the aquarium. We have like a mini Bigfoot display, and there's a copy of Tom Shade's hand cast from here in Kentucky, and a couple of other Bigfoot stuff, and you sit there at the counter and you watch them, and they go around the room, and they stop and they're like, oh ho ho. But sometimes they stand there and they really look at the Bigfoot casts. And then I'll go over and I'll talk to them about it, you know, that kind of thing. And then, yeah, sure, all this Bigfoot stuff starts coming out.
Yeah.
And I've gotten, there was one where there's a research project I'm working on. And it sounds silly because it's a rather banal Bigfoot story. But in 1969, in a somewhat residential neighborhood in this town called Fife, Washington, which is very close to Tacoma. Mm-hmm. When you're on I-5 and you're crossing through Fife, it only takes like 7 minutes to get up to this. And It's generally called the Five Heights incident. And in 1969, two young guys were coming back from a party, and they come to a stop sign, and on the right hand side there are houses, and then there's the road, and then on the other side of the road there's a very steep hill. It's almost a cliff that dives down like 200 feet into a green area. And they look at the stop sign, and there at the stop sign there's this large hair-covered creature just standing there. And they mentioned that it was so tall that its head was higher than the stop sign.
Wow.
The creature takes like 2 or 3 steps across the road and goes down the cliff. But when it gets to the edge of the road and about to go down the cliff, it grabbed a sign almost like you and I would grab a banister, a rail for the stairs.
Yeah, you're about to fall like, ah!
And it grabbed it, and it bent it, and it scratched the sign. And so this showed up in a little 60-second clip in a movie called Bigfoot Man or Beast, another documentary. And there was a researcher who looked into it directly at the time, about 3 or 4 or 5 days after it happened. And a great researcher of the 60s, 70s, and 80s named Richard Grover. And Dick Grover is in the movie holding the sign. And I always like Ape Canyon or other stuff. I like enjoying doing this research, particularly if there's a physical component still hanging around that's pertinent to the story. Not necessarily, I'm not going to go out and look for 30-year-old footprints or anything like that, but just some physical component to the story that adds to it. And so I've been looking for that sign for a long time now, and I haven't found the sign yet, but I feel like I'm close. I was able to interview Richard Grover before he passed, got some intel. I was able to track down one of the original witnesses who saw it crossing the road, talk to him about it. But the point being is that they're the hand casts there in the aquarium. Some guy's looking at it, and we start talking, and talking about, where are you from, that kind of thing. And he's like, well, I live in Tacoma now, but I grew up in Fife. And he's about the right age. I was like, wait a minute. Did you ever hear about the Fife Heights incident? And he's like, oh, no. Everybody in town knew about it. Absolutely. And so we get to talking. And he didn't have a lot of information about my project as a sign, but he said he knew exactly where this happened. It took me a few weeks to figure out where this had happened. And this is sort of a banal part of it. But in the movie, with the 60-second clip, what were their names? I can't remember the witnesses' names right now, but they were at the stop sign and saw the creature cross the road. And the camera points to it, and it says it was at the stop sign. The creature was standing there. And in the movie, you can see one of the street signs of what street it was on. And so I took that and I looked all over Fife and finally found the intersection where it happened.
Wow.
Based on that.
Okay.
So, and then I went to the site. It was obvious because all the houses are still there and stuff. Anyway, so this guy I was talking to in the aquarium knew exactly where this happened. And then he tells me his Bigfoot story that happened within about half a mile of this road crossing. This fellow says that it still is. There are parts of Fife that are very, very rural. And he grew up in a house and go through the backyard and go into Old Man Johnson's apple orchard. And he and his friends were messing around. And they had taken off their shoes to play in the grass in the orchard. And Old Man Johnson with the orchard was known to have a red mare, this old horse, and which was really, really red. And it would get out quite often. And so they're playing around, and there, a few trees away, there's Old Man Johnson's horse. She's gotten out again. And they're like, wait a minute. The horse appears to be on its hind legs with its hooves on the tree, grabbing or eating apples. And they're like, what is that? And they realize that ain't Johnson's horse, and it is, it's an upright Sasquatch with reddish hair.
Wow.
And it's gathering apples. His friends take off, and he runs back a few feet to get his shoes. and he's furtively putting on the shoes, and he looks behind him, and the creature is standing still, looking right at him, and it has one arm crooked with a bunch of apples piled up in it, like I would gather apples,
Yeah.
and it grabs one of the apples, holds it out, and it drops it on the ground.
Wow.
Almost like it was an offering.
Wow.
And kid freaks out, runs back home. He, as an adult man, told me a little bit more that he has some native heritage, and he went to go talk to his grandmother, and she was like, "You didn't pick up that apple, did you?" And he's like, "No, I was terrified. I ran." She's like, "Good, never, ever do that, because if you took the apple, then you would be forever connected to him, to this creature." And it was a warning story that if you picked up the apple, that creature or the body of Sasquatch would never, ever leave you alone. And it would be sort of like a curse, if you will.
Okay, so where can I find this, and where can I find my own apple to pick up after watching someone drop it?
Oh, I was talking to an old-time friend researcher, and he says, I would have gotten the apple.
Exactly. I'd be like, so you mean you're telling me if I pick up this apple, Bigfoot's going to be my best friend? Hell yeah, I'll do it!
Well, the nature of the story is, I got the impression, like, he wouldn't necessarily be your friend, but
he would hang out at least in the area. I'd be okay with it. It would be like, I'd be in my back or go, ugh. He'd go, ugh. like yeah,
go bowling.
Exactly. It's like it's your turn. I go away. I hear like it's like strike. So how sure are we that the sign is still around, like, and no one's like disposed of it?
Here's the story. It took me a friend. It was, the other thing is about Bigfoot research is that when you get involved in the community, hopefully you end up making connections with people. And I have. And there have been so many friends in the research community who have really, really helped me out a lot. I think that the future, hopefully, because I think it's a good idea, the future of Bigfoot research is every individual who may be interested in the phenomenon, whether they know it or not, they have some sort of skill set beyond just Bigfoot research. They're anatomists, they're plumbers, they're IT guys, they're whatever. And I think that they can take their skill set and apply it in one way or another to Sasquatch research. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of what I've done with land surveying, because I'm really good at document research. I'm really good at field research. So with those kind of connections, there are some things I know that I'm not good at. If I happen to find what I think is a track, and I cast it and I photograph it, it's like, wow, this is really cool. But the next thing I'm going to do is get a hold of my friends who know a lot about tracks and prints, because I don't. Audio recording, I have friends who are great at sound recording and analyzing suspicious sounds, as David Ellis says. So the point being is that one of my friends had contact years ago with Richard Grover, this investigator in the Five Heights incident. Eventually, Richard Grover was kind of traveling, and he was a little bit of a migratory person and changing his phones. But finally, I got a hold of his number, and he was in Las Vegas at the time. And it's kind of a shame because Richard Grover dropped out, and I'll tell you why. But he was in a conversation. We talked for about an hour. He was wanting to get back into the circuit, if you will, of speaking and talking to people about Bigfoot. And the guy had just so much information over his 2 or 3 decades of Sasquatch research. He was sort of like the second generation down from like John Green and DeHinden and that kind of thing.
Wow.
Yeah, he knew a lot.
He's standing on some pretty big shoulders.
Heck,
right
yeah,
there.
You bet. And so the story was that he had done all this kind of research, and he continued to do it, and pretty much until he died. But there was one point, and he was living out in Randall, Washington, and he was living out in Randall, and he and his wife, Richard Grover called it the curse of Bigfoot. And the curse of Bigfoot is where the subject matter takes over your life so much that it kind of ruins your life of like personal relationships and stuff.
Yeah.
And so he and his wife, she got really, really pissed off. And they get into this screaming, massive fight one night in the middle of the night. And despite her, Richard grabs all of his stuff and he chucks it out in the front yard. And he's like, there, are you happy now? And there it sat. And there it sat. Tape recordings, notes, research, all this kind of stuff. And it just got rained on and rained on and rained on and rained on and rained on, including the sign.
Oh no.
And so I asked Richard, and he was an older man. I was like, well, do you remember the address or where you lived? He's like, no, I don't remember. And they were renting the house. So, and he said that he understood that the house had been torn down and rebuilt. Here's the deal. He lived in about 2 or 3 different locations around Randall. And I've pretty much tracked down each one that he probably lived at the time that this incident happened. You know, this everything thrown out in the front yard. If I can contact those landowners, would you mind if I just ran my metal detector around your front yard for a little while? Here's what I'm looking for. I strongly suspect that if the house was built, maybe that sign just got plowed under. And it's underground, just like 2 or 3 inches.
So that sounds like that'd be the best case scenario, that it was more just dirt was piled on top of it, and not just cleaned up and like thrown out when they were doing all the construction and everything.
If it was thrown out, it's gone. Yeah. It's in the dump.
Now, is there any like original picture of the sign? So if you do find it, you might have something to compare it to?
Yes, absolutely there is. In that 60-second clip of Bigfoot Man or Beast, you can see it clearly. And so the way that Grover got it is that, okay, there's a bent sign. And so the county road crews went out and we have to replace the sign. And they grabbed it and they took it back to the shop because it's public property. And Grover got a hold of the county road crew and it's like, do you still have that sign? Yeah. Okay. It's like, oh, you can have it. Sure. And so you can clearly see the bend, and you can clearly see the scratch marks on the back of it. And I think that he estimated it took a crazy amount of foot-pounds, especially at that time with good thick American steel, in order to bend it.
That thing would have been built really well.
Yeah.
And for it to bend like that, obviously it must have been something very heavy and strong to be able to make it do that.
Also to make those scratch impressions in the back, because they're definitive scratches.
How big or long are the scratches?
I'm going to estimate in my brain that it's probably between 4 or 5 inches long, and okay. Because there's just much of a grab, maybe a little bit longer, and maybe a couple of inches apart.
Okay, all right, that's a pretty sizable scratch there for your. So
yeah.
So how? I guess now what would be the final steps for you to be able to possibly find that property and to be like, yo, can I scan it?
Well, I have. I've gotten a little bit off of it because when you rent a house, there's not a lot of public records because your rental contract is not recorded.
It's just rental. Who really cares?
So I mainly found it through phone books and utility records, like the electric company. I found that because they don't throw anything away. I got some old billing addresses for Grover. So I've nailed down about 3 different spots, and I just have to get the gumption. That's the hard part of making that cold call and knocking on their door.
Yeah, because for all we know, they probably have no idea who you are or anything about that. They're like, who is this crazy guy that's calling me about a sign? What?
Yeah, I know. We were actually talking about that this last week, because I've gotten to know family members who are related to the Ape Canyon story, and we've become great friends. Some of them are 23 years old, and some of them are 79 years old. And but when I first contacted them, rural, hardworking family. Yeah, they were highly suspicious of me.
I bet.
They were highly, highly suspicious of me. But I don't know. I guess I don't know. they warmed up. And I'm charming or whatever.
You do have a very charming thing about you, Mark. To be able to soothe anyone to what you need them for. It's like, come on. It's like, we do it, please. You make it work.
Well, also, I tend to be rather tenacious and persistent.
Yes, I mean, for sure. Especially, it's like, come on, tell me, do it. But wow, so
can I bump some of your coffee?
Oh, go for it.
I just grabbed it.
Please, you can have whatever you want.
Okay, thank you.
Have some of the coffee.
All right.
But man, I really hope that does work out. You're able to go there, and fingers crossed. I mean, I guess I'm assuming that you probably know that. Like, all right, if I've checked these spots on this property and I get nothing, then there probably is nothing.
Well, for sure, I can tell you particularly with something like that. Oops, because I'm a land surveyor and I have a great metal detector, and I have a bit of a crush on my metal detector. It's great, but I can tell you that with the nature of steel, because it just deals on ferrous-based metals, steel and iron and that kind of thing, because it works off a magnetic signal. Those kind of signs, I've tested them out on those kind of signs, and whoa, it sounds like there's a Mack logging truck buried down there. So I'm not going to be digging for just like any little bleep or bloop.
When you'll hit it, you hit something good. Yeah. You've got something.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. It's just a long-term project. The fortunate thing is that I was able to talk with Grover, and I liked him a lot. We had a good time on the phone. Unfortunately, he passed about 3 months later after our conversation. So, he's not coming back into the Bigfoot picture. He really wanted to, though, and I really wanted him to. And I was able to interview, I think through Facebook, I was able to track down one of the original witnesses. And he was a nice enough guy. And he told me his story. He was nice enough to talk to me about it. I said, do you want me to use your name? Or it wasn't that. He was okay with the name, but it was like, do you want to record this? And he was like, nope. He didn't want to be associated with it anymore. But yeah.
But even though unfortunately it was 3 months afterwards you last talked to him, at least you were able to talk to him at least beforehand, at least, and be able to get what you wanted out of that interaction, and be able to then take it and then go even further with it.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm hoping that when you finally are able to go back to that property, you finally get the gumption up to do it and everything. You can, maybe you'll find something. Hopefully, it's one visit and that's it.
Not to be a jerk and self-absorbed, but nothing is ever gone until I say it's gone. Hold on a second. Let me get some water.
No, I completely understand that for sure. Because I can only imagine, like Mark, if I say that's done when it's done, kind of thing.
I'm a good finder.
I mean, sure, especially if you grew up being a land surveyor and stuff like that. Of course, you'd be good at finding things or knowing you did your best, and there's no more you can do.
Yeah, it's true.
That is spectacular, and I wish you the best of luck with that too, and hopefully you can get that to work in your favor and everything else like that. And now, how big of a property is it? I'm not sure if you said that or not.
No, not big. I don't know. Each one is about an acre or so.
Okay, so
it's not big at all.
So it sounds like if you go there, you should be able to, if you know where to start and everything. If it's still there, you should be able to just one visit, and that should be it, unless something crazy happens.
And it's the kind of thing where I could do it. I could do all the properties in a day, and so I find it or I don't. But you never know. The thing is that no matter what, I know what I just said, but no matter what, no good research project, no matter what it is ever complete.
Yeah.
And if you think it's done, then you're making a mistake, because you just never know. Every time, I think when the Ape Canyon project is done and there's nothing else to do, nothing else to find, and that's never really happened, but all of a sudden something comes out of the woodwork, out of the blue, that sends me off on a whole other tangent of the Ape Canyon story. It's remarkable
Yeah,
how
like
much
the
how much we've how
yeah,
much more we're finding.
like the pictures that you brought over the Cliffs Museum and stuff like that. People have never seen these before, and now, like, lo and behold, here's some unknown pictures that no one's ever knew existed until today.
The only people who knew they existed were the family members whose photo album it came out of. And like most family history, well, like most families, there's usually just one person in that family, grandma and aunt or whatever, who's really into family history and sort of like the family history librarian. She knew the story of the Ape Canyon incident, and she knew what those photos were all about. But it was just a family photo album kind of thing, and she really didn't disseminate them at all. And no, nobody had seen them, and the photos are beautiful. The photos
Wow.
are amazingly beautiful. So for the research community, those 100-year-old pictures are only like 6 months old because I found them like well, no, maybe a little bit older now, but maybe about a year ago. I was able to get a hold of them.
Still, that's still
Yeah,
fantastic.
they're
That's something new
amazing.
like that came out of us, out of a now 100-year-old story that everyone thought, oh, everything we know about it, shape and done, and
Yeah.
like, wait, what's this?
Yeah. The good thing about it too is that Sandy, who uh, lent them, gave me permission to use them.
Mm-hmm.
She totally digs it. She loves the work. She loves the Bigfoot research that people are doing and that kind of thing. So she's really, really supportive.
Well, that I bet that definitely made that a whole lot easier instead of like some family member that wanted to like keep this secret to the family and not let other people see it. But the fact that they're so willing to share and to show more about it, it's just fantastic.
It's true. And on Ape Canyon, there's another person involved now. Um, that's a very sweet story. We've become really good friends, and Betty is the daughter of the youngest of the original miners.
Mm-hmm.
Betty is 79 or so, 75, and we just did yet another interview with her, and I uh, I had found her phone number many many years ago, and I knew who she was, and she was the daughter because I had pulled this one miner, Leroy Smith. I had pulled his obituary, and of course it gave the survivors, and there was Betty Mitchell, and she grew up in Longview, and I was able to track down her phone number, and I gave her a call, left a message, and when I left a message, I was too chicken to let Bigfoot out of the bag.
Yeah.
I was just because it's an older woman I've never met, and I was like, oh, Mrs. Mitchell, I'm doing a historical research project on your family, and I started naming names and everything, and she called me back like within 3 minutes,
Oh, good.
and we started talking, and we talked for 2 or 3 or 4 times, and yeah, Betty, no, Leroy's my dad, and Fred Beck was my uncle, and Marion Smith was my grandfather, and so I knew I had the right person. And did your dad? Well, there was a mine up on Mount St. Helens that your dad and Fred and your grandpa worked. Did he ever talk to you about that? His old mining days? No, no, he never did. But one of the punchlines, she had forgotten that she told me this. When Dad died and we were cleaning out his dresser, we found this little burlap bag with gold in it, and we never knew where that came from. And I was like, "Dang, that's the Ape Canyon gold, man!" But the crazy thing is, so um, somehow, some way, she figured out this had to do with Bigfoot, and I think she thought. Now we were not in contact at the time because frankly, what had happened is I got scared away by her husband. Her husband does not want to have anything to do with Bigfoot. Again, he was highly suspicious of this weirdo and this kind of thing, and he scared me off. He was like giving me some very nasty words over the phone. Do not call here again. Do not come back. Do not stop bothering my wife. This kind of thing. So I did. And I left it alone for about a year or more. I ended up getting contacted by one of her grandsons, Tyler Mitchell. And he was curious, about the story. He's a young guy and filmmaker in Seattle. And I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And he was really interested, at least in the story. And I told him the story of getting yelled at by his grandfather And he's like, well, that's the way my grandfather is. And he said, let me talk to grandma. And he did. And it was the two things that are funny is that Betty, growing up in Longview, Kelso, knew about the Ape Canyon incident, but she didn't know it was her family until I told her. Her dad never said a word to her.
Wow.
So it was me. It was me that sprung the news on her. But the cool thing is that okay, there's a small like 1-day conference, afternoon conference in a community center at the Daybreak Star Center in Seattle, and I was asked to go. And Tyler, the grandson, said, "Yeah, we might come by." And I remember standing around there. I was listening to Shane Corson, and Shane's talking. And all around the Daybreak Center, it's a beautiful building. There's these huge picture windows that look into the woods and look down to the water and everything. And there's this car that comes up and parks, and I can see it behind Shane through the window. And guy gets out, and it's, is that Tyler? And Tyler goes around, and he goes to the passenger side, and he escorts this older woman out coming into the building. And I'm like, oh, damn, that's Betty Mitchell. Oh, crap. And so they come in, and we introduce ourselves to each other. And they're like, okay, we want to listen. We'll sit down, and we want to listen to the speakers. And I'm like, yeah, sure. And I'm on cloud 9. And I'm running around to all my Bigfoot researcher friends, and it's like, you won't believe who's here. You won't believe who's here. And the cool thing is that was her first gig going to a Bigfoot, getting involved in the Bigfoot research world. And she walked in just like a regular, charming older woman, and she left like a rock star. People were wanting to take pictures with her.
Wow.
And have her sign stuff. And are you really related to the miners and all this kind of stuff? And she was like, what is this? What is this world? But since then, she's been to a couple of other conferences. And one of my favorites is that I was speaking in Longview, headquarters for Ape Canyon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I talked to Betty before. And it's like, okay, this is what we're going to do. So I go through my Ape Canyon thing, and in the last 15 minutes, I talk about evidence, and I talk about parole evidence, and parole evidence is verbal evidence, and I'm trying to equate family stories. Even though people are dead, parole evidence is one of the highest forms of evidence, and I believe family stories fit into that. And so I was talking about that, and here's a picture of Leroy Smith. And so with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite to the stage Miss Betty Mitchell. And you could hear this audible gasp go across the entire audience. And one guy in the audience was like, holy shit. And Betty comes up, and we have a chat, and we interview on stage, and the crowd just went nuts. And so she's been back to conferences even when I'm not there, just to hang out and say hi to people that she knows now. So now she's a big deal. And she said how much she appreciates this story and the story coming to light, that it's such a rich, rich story. And she's gone out and started Betty found photos that I didn't find, and she shared them with me of her grandfather, Marion Smith. She just gave me a couple about 2 days ago.
Oh, wow.
This is
hot, like
oh,
just
yeah,
happened.
Yeah.
Hot the presses. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. What it was old scenes of logging in the 19 teens in Kelso Longview. And she was just going through the Historical Society and got a niche that I hadn't gotten into yet. And sure enough, she found a couple. And there it is in the caption below, Marion Smith bucking logs on the Cowlitz River. So, yeah, it's really good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, she's definitely opened Pandora's box, and she can now not close it, no matter how badly she wants to, because the fact that now she's now aware of her connection to Ape Canyon, and then other people are like, oh my gosh, a family member of the original miners. Oh my God, this is insane.
Well, the other thing is that I became good friends with 3 guys who are 3 other grandsons of Betty. And they they're really tight. You can tell. I hung out with them all together a few days ago, and they're very close with their grandmother, and they're very sweet with her. And I find Betty incredibly charming. I like her a lot. And they're just hanging out with grandma, just chatting at a family function. And Betty's like, yeah, I'm friends with this weirdo, long hair weirdo. Is really into Bigfoot. And he has this story, and she's like really excited about it. You won't believe this story. And these three young guys are like, I don't know, between like 22 and 27 or 25. Really cool cats. Braden and Jared and Jake Mitchell. And they're like, we want to go. We want to go. And we had arranged, they had been up there, up to Ape Canyon, and they wanted to see the cabin site. And they had gone, but couldn't find anything. And they're like, well, can you come with us? I'm sure. So it was me and Cliff and my friend Brad and Keith from the museum, from Cliff's museum. We went up there. The Mitchells couldn't make it.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, can you give us directions on how to get to the cabin site? Normally I do not do this, but it's their family story, so I make sure.
Yeah.
And so I give them the best detailed directions as I can, which is hard.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, you go down the hill and there's a tree. You know that tree? And then there's a rock, So I tried to do the best I could. And they were up there a couple of weeks after us, and they're highly energetic young guys. And they went up and down that slope like 3 times. Finally got to the cabin site.
All right.
So they were like, oh, this now it makes sense. And they sent me pictures. And it's like, yeah, you guys made it. That is the cabin site. And this all makes sense. And then Jake is like, man, to hell with it. And he's like, I'm going to keep on going. And about 45 minutes later or so, they found the mine.
Oh, so this is the mine. They found the mine story. Okay.
They found the mine. And I can tell you that I was within 25 feet, 50 feet of the mine more than once. And it's incredible. The whole area is incredibly, profoundly dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
Even just going 100 feet takes you an hour.
Yeah, Cliff told me the story of when he was he went there with the mine site with you,
Mm-hmm.
and he couldn't rappel down because he was too much of a chicken to get down to where it was. Obviously, showing how pretty dangerous and perilous it is just to, climb down there just to get to it.
And also indicating how smart Cliff is, as opposed to me, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You both got your own different smartness in this situation.
I had told Braden, it's like, you guys call me when you get off the mountain, because I'm the responsible party for showing you how to get up there. And so he found a little bit of reception, sent me a photo of a hole in the ground. And he's like, oh, we're all safe. We had a good time. And we found this. And then he disappears. He goes off the radar for a reception for a while, for like two or three hours. And all it was this. And there's a hole in the ground. It's an adit. It's a mine entrance. Then I'm like, what the hell? I was like, writing, and I'm like, is this 4 hours away? Where is this? What is this? Finally gets back in. And he's like, yeah, it was just 50 feet from the cabin site. He said it was right there. But he said, and it's true, you're looking uphill, looking downhill. And you are, in theory, looking at the very, very top rim, drip line, if you will, of the mine entrance. But the entrance is pointing away from you, so you don't see it.
Yeah.
And he said, you do not see the mine until you are actually standing right dead on top of it.
Wow.
And so I just didn't go far enough. But Jake did. So the thing about the mine that's exciting is that I just got a lead on through National Archives of the records of the National Mint in Seattle. And the National Mint is in charge, or was in charge, of gold and silver assays for mines around here. And so I talked to my archivist there, and she says, well, there's about 6 cardboard boxes that aren't indexed, full of mining assay records. And so I'm going to go up there, and she's going to help me go through the boxes to see if I can find gold assays for the Vanderwhite mine at Ape Canyon. Because Fred Beck and Marion Smith did say that it was assayed, and the assays were coming back very, very good. So the reason why is because what I want to do, I'm in contact with the archaeologist at the Gifford Pinchot National Forest, and he's excited about the project too. What I'm going to try to do is to see if I can get a permit to take a small sample out of the mine, have that assayed, and see how it compares with the assay if I can find it in 1924.
Okay,
To add to some thoughts, to show that there really was gold there. They were really getting gold, and that's why they were working so hard, working this mine for 2 years. Word is that it goes back about 75 feet or so, to show that there was valuable gold, and they were getting some gold out of it. But then on July the 10th, 1924, they gave it all up. We're out of here.
Yeah.
Despite that they had more time to work the mine, and despite the fact possibly that they were getting gold out of it.
Yeah, but obviously with the situation, Ape Canyon and everything like that, they were like, yeah, we want to nope the heck out of here.
Yeah, exactly. A friend of mine, Gene, Gene's old. Gene's almost 90, and he's not into Bigfoot at all. But he's a good friend, and Catherine's known him a lot longer than I have, and he's done some amazing historical research projects. And he's basically an independent mad scientist. He has many patents of stuff that we actually use today. He's a genius. But he and I enjoy talking history and all this kind of stuff. And he's given me some interesting advice too for stuff. But he always asks me about Ape Canyon and my other projects. But like Gene said, the point of the proof of labor, the one proof of labor that was filed for the mine, said that all work was completed on July the 10th, 1924. And that's what Fred Beck and Marion Smith said. All work is completed. They had so much more time and so much more good weather. But they just bailed, and they never went back. And like Gene said, he said something must have scared them off.
And that's the comes with the story of the Ape Canyon attack that we all know today, especially with the 100th anniversary of it that just happened this past summer.
That's right.
So obviously, before we're gonna want to step back just a little bit. What have you had any like personal activity with Bigfoot yet that you can confirmly say like, yeah, I had some sort of Bigfoot encounter, or I saw one, or anything like that?
Yes. Did I tell you about it?
Maybe, but regardless if you did or not, I bet my listeners would love to hear it too. So by all means, Mark, shoot it off.
Okay. Let me predicate it by saying that, a great researcher and a friend out in our area in Washington, a fellow named Derek Randalls. I always think I have these friends have gems of wisdom coming off their lips, and Derek has had his own encounters, and he said it best. He's like, Sasquatch, is it Sasquatch? I'm not sure what a Sasquatch is, but he's like, I know what I saw, and it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit, the square peg in the square hole kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's what happened with me.
Okay.
I was working on a film project in Southwest Oregon with Bobo Fay, and we were done for that field trip. And the reason why I got involved in this, Bobo called me, and he knew I was working on this project, and it's an old, very, very long history of violent Sasquatch encounters. And there was a cabin that was attacked twice in 1 week, and it's a long story. I call it the Thompson Flat Monster. And so Bobo called me, and he wants to do a documentary about it. So that's how I got involved. So we're done for the majority of the filming, and we're camped up there. And it was myself and Bobo and Rowdy Kelly, two production assistants, Gordon and Jameson, who had come up from Humboldt County, And then a friend, Kim Christensen, who has a lot of information about the area. She grew up in the area and is highly interested in Bigfoot. And she, at least at the time, she's like leveled out a little bit, but at the time she was really new into Bigfoot and was like super, super excited, and everything was Bigfoot and that kind of thing. And so, but we're done. And the whole plan is that the production assistants are done and they're going to go back to Humboldt County. We don't need them. Kim is going to go back home. Rowdy and Bobo and I are going to drive down to the highway and where there's some cell phone reception, and we can figure out a place to stay because we have some more filming to do the next day at a newspaper office. So the two production assistants, Gordon and Jameson, leave, and they're off to California. Kim's like, okay, I'm going to leave. Bye. Okay, bye. And so Rowdy and Bobo, all they have to do is load up the ATVs, the quads, onto the trailer. And okay, I'll meet you guys down at the highway. And this is in the afternoon in November, 2021. And Kim had taken off about 5 minutes before me. And so I'm driving out, and this is a very, very rugged rural area. And the Forest Service road is like a lane at the best, maybe a lane and a half.
Okay.
And I'm driving out, and there's Kim's car off to the right. And I roll down the window. You cool? And she's like, no, I'm just looking at a map about a lake I want to go visit where she had some encounters previously. Okay, bye. It's November, and it's in a very, very well-populated forest of evergreens, mostly Douglas fir. So the area had not really ever been logged because it's frankly too rugged to log. So it's very dense forest. And also the thing about the area around there, it's sort of like a mini Rockies, where it's not like volcano basalt, like the majority of it is up in that region. It's in this one limited area. It's like granite and marble uplift. So it's like a mini Rocky range, and it's very, very steep, really steep. And so where this happened is that I'm paralleling one of the forks of the Sixes River, and then from the river it goes up very, very steeply, a few hundred feet to the road cut, and then beyond the road cut it keeps on going very, very steeply up. It's dark. It's about 5 o'clock, and I have my headlights on and my brights on, and I round around a corner, and I'm going like 25 miles an hour, 30, 25. And I round around a corner. I can see in front of me the road continuing on straight, going slightly uphill until it crests. And so I can only see about 200 or 300 feet in front of me of the road. And as I round around the corner, there is this individual in the middle of the road. And it had been moving, but it suddenly froze and stood still, facing me about 200 feet away. And my first thought was, who the hell is playing out in the middle of the national forest at night? And then why are they wearing a fireman's outfit? Because initially it looked like, this is split second thinking. This whole thing lasted only about 5 or 6 seconds, but it looked like they were wearing a dirty yellow beige fireman's outfit, big bulky arms, big bulky legs, stuff around their neck, so it looked like they didn't have a neck. You could see its face a little bit. And I kind of take my foot off the gas, but I keep on going a little bit. So this first individual starts taking off across the road. It had come from the riverside, so it had come from the downhill side. It's headed towards the uphill side. It pauses for a quick second as it's running and slightly turns around from where it came from and looks, and from where it had come from, he's about in the middle of the road. Where it had come from, a second individual comes from a crouching position, stands up, and they, two of them, just start cooking it across the road in front of me. I had kept on creeping up a little bit on it, and I wasn't sure exactly where they had entered the road, but I knew exactly where they had exited the road, because by the time I was like 50 feet on top of them, man. By the time that the second individual across the road. And the profound thing about it that was frankly very, very disturbing to me, um, it is their movement. We have this paradigm of how does Sasquatch move?
Yeah.
Patterson Gimlin film.
Yeah.
And it was not like that at all. Because Patty is slow and loping, like she doesn't have a care in the world, and turns around, looks at Roger and Bob, and just keeps on going, swinging arms. Now these things, they were moving in a runner's fashion, running, sprinting with bent arms, like you and I would run, and their movements were, one would describe them as running, but their movements were so fast and jerky. I mean, they were moving, rate of speed was very fast, but the way that they moved their arms, the way that they moved their legs was just like lightning fast.
Wow.
Like nothing I had ever seen. The closest thing I can think of is like when you see a dragonfly take off or a housefly. You see an insect. It wasn't insect-like movements, but it was that rapidity of movement.
Yeah, just that quick, sudden movement going, pew!
Yeah, like that. Yeah, right. And it wigged me out. And so the second individual cooks up the hill. And for a split second, I thought about keeping on going. And I know this sounds silly, but I realized that second there was no way I couldn't not talk about it. So when I would talk with my Bigfoot research friends, I thought that they would say, "Why didn't you stop?" And so that's what I did. I slammed on the brakes and threw it in park, and I left the engine running at that time. And I leap out of the driver's seat. I'm standing there, and I can hear the river rushing behind me. And I'm looking up the hill where they had exited. And I'm going to guess that those two individuals were maybe, by the way this whole timing and how quickly they ran, maybe 75, 100 feet up the hill. And my heart was racing and I was like really freaked out. But then it got worse because I'm looking up the hill and it's dead quiet. Oh. There's no snapping. There's no brush moving. There's no nothing. And my reptilian brain begins to realize that whatever I saw was just standing still looking at me. And all this massive amount of heat starts coming around the back of my neck and creeping up my head, on my ears. My ears are burning. And I was like really, really freaked out.
Wow.
So when I was driving out, Kim had followed me. And within about a minute or two, Kim's there. And she stops and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, and she's like, "Oh my God." And she leaps out and I'm going trying to explain the story and everything. And about 3 or 4 minutes later, Bobo and Rowdy come and they park behind Kim. And I go up to Bo's truck. He's there first. And he's like, "Is there an accident?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "Well, did you have a flat tire?" And I was like, "No." And I said, "Something just crossed the road." And he's like, "Holy shit, you saw a squatch?" And I dumbly held up 2 fingers and I was like, I saw 2. And he's like, "Holy shit." And he bails out of the truck and he goes back to Rowdy. And he's like, "A squatch just crossed the road." And Rowdy, because of Kim's reputation, he was like, "Who saw it, Kim?" And Bobo was like, "No, it was Mark." And Rowdy's like, "Holy crap." And he starts yarding out all the film equipment, throws the microfilm on me, starts the camera. He's like, "Start talking right now." So they were able to capture my reaction like within 5 or 6 or 7 minutes of the
wow. So it was still obviously still fresh. The emotion, the fear of everything you still had was still hitting you at the moment.
Yeah, Bobo was like, "You couldn't even talk." He told me later. He was like, "And I couldn't." It messed me up.
I've heard one story from someone who one was like roared at him, and when he was telling the story, like this probably happened like years ago, he started tearing up and everything like that.
I was about to bring that up, and I don't know why. We went back the next day and found some impressions, but nothing really castable because we went up the hill.
Yeah.
The one thing that we did see that night, which was fun, is that Kim and Bubba and I are standing alongside the gravel road. Where the two individuals exited, there's a slight uphill dirt embankment and then a very profound vertical rock escarpment outcropping. It's about 12 feet high. And Rowdy's up there filming, and he has this really very very bright light, like an O light or something, and we all four saw it at the same time. He's scanning with his camera and the light, and at where they had exited at the very top of this rock escarpment, there's detritus and leaves and moss and stuff piled up, and right at the very top of it there's about a scrape about 4 or 5 inches wide, where it was a brand new fresh scrape because you can see the water coming out of it.
Yeah.
Where something had apparently, with a foot or a hand, had tried to gain traction at the top of it, and it slipped. Right. And then it kept on going up the hill. Right.
Wow.
So we get back to town, and Kim said goodbye. And we're in a room, in a hotel room, and Rowdy and Bubba were in one room and I was in the other one. And I get on the phone because it's my first reception after about 4 or 5 days, and I said I got to check in with home, and I couldn't tell my family about it. I just couldn't talk about it. I don't know why, but I did that night. I did start sketching what I saw, and finally I get back home, and the next weekend or next week is Thanksgiving. So I get back home, and it's my first night laying down, and it's like, I got to tell you something. And man, it's happening already. For the longest time, and I don't know why, the first 6 or 7 or 8 times, I couldn't get through the story. For whatever reason, just tears coming down my face.
Wow.
And I didn't feel unsafe. I didn't feel threatened. I didn't feel anything. But it really, really disturbed me a lot. And so we had Thanksgiving, and my daughter was there. She's 24. And I was like, I got to tell you something. And I think it disturbed her too. She's a very big skeptic of the Bigfoot issue.
Yeah.
And she's a little bit too much of a skeptic, in my opinion. she is a research scientist. And so I was like, you should be a better scientist than that. You need to consider all possibilities of everything. But she's too much of a skeptic. She's coming around. Anyway, I think I disturbed her because I told the story, and she had never seen her father like that. I'm not a macho guy or anything like that, but it obviously something was very, very disturbing to me, enough for me to like kind of be sobbing by the end. By the time I get done with the story, and still when I told this story, I'm fighting back the tears a bit. It's disturbing.
I can tell just by looking at your face, and yeah. I greatly appreciate telling the story, because that's remarkable. That's an amazing story, from just a simple road crossing happening in front of you, to how fast it was, thinking you're only seeing one, and you see a second one come behind. Yeah. That's an amazing story. That's fantastic.
There's this great guy who's interested in Bigfoot. Okay, case in point, I was talking about before. He has a specialized skill, but he's also interested in Bigfoot. And a great guy named Doug Meacham, and he's in Portland.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of Doug Meacham before.
Yeah, and he's a hypnotherapist. And so,
wait, isn't he the one that's working on the Legend Meets Science documentary, Science 2 documentary right now, I believe?
Are you thinking of Doug Hychek?
Hychek.
Oh, that's Doug Hychek. Yeah, Doug Hychek.
But Meacham does sound familiar. I feel like or maybe he. I know I've
you could have easily come across him, because I talked to Doug, and I was like, I think I want to do this, and he's like, call me when you're ready. I can't make you. But he has done regressions. He did a regression with Bob Gimlin about the Patterson-Gimlin incident.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Bob was in the area, and someone said, hey, I have an idea. And they got an appointment with Doug for a session, for a regression to well, as Doug put it, it's like, as most hypnosis and stuff, you're in complete control, but that kind of state can help you remember things that you forgot.
Yeah, I have seen that a few times with people who have, especially when they were kids and don't fully remember all those details,
Yeah,
being hypnotized and them telling more info about a story that they didn't even remember about, but all of a sudden
sure.
they're hearing these details of like, wait, whoa, wait, really? Wow,
Yeah. So with the Thompson Flat Road crossing, I'm probably going to do that one of these days.
wow,
I just think it'd be interesting.
well, whenever you do that, I'd love any extra detail you
Oh,
find out
sure.
about the event.
Yeah.
That'd be flipping awesome.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic, Mark.
So
That's
Shane, of course, then taught me the term confirmation experience. I've heard weird stuff out in the woods before that I cannot explain at all. But it basically is that, I don't know. I really don't know what that was. But with the two individuals, like Derek said, I know what I saw.
yeah. Oh, that's
What was it, Sasquatch? I don't even know exactly what Sasquatch is. Like, it's hard for me to put that label on it, but I know what I saw.
Yeah, that's somebody that's a well known thing for a lot of people who have said something and people are like, but are you sure? It's like, I'm not sure what I saw, but I know I saw
I know
something.
what I saw.
You
Yeah.
know what you saw, and for them, that's all they really need. They don't need confirmation from this person, this, and they're like, I know what I saw, and
Yeah.
whether it's this or something else, I know what it is.
Yeah, and Cliff said later. I was talking with some other people, and what I did after this incident, I was trying to be a good researcher. I wrote out an affidavit and had it notarized with all my sketches and maps and that kind of thing, and I sent it to a few friends. Just, hey, stick this in your file, and they're like, holy crap! Word spread kind of fast, I guess. But Cliff was like, so you don't think you saw a Sasquatch? And I'm like, well, I know what I saw, but I'm not sure. And Cliff was like, you saw two Sasquatch.
Probably that's what it sounds like to me. But I do want to know this documentary that you did film with Bobo during that. Is there any word on when that might come to life for people to see?
Golly.
Or that's the question you get a lot, I bet.
Let me tell you now. Now, I have two documentaries coming out. Okay. Every production. No, I'm not a film producer. I guess I'm just the talent or whatever. But
you're just a pretty face on camera.
I guess so. Yeah, I'm going to get my SAG Screen Actors Guild card here any day. I do have friends who are film producers, and they tell me, yeah, sometimes there are productions that are done but will never see the light of day. And just logistical problems. There are a lot of pitfalls. A lot of things can go wrong. And so right now, for way too long, even though we did most of the filming like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It's in the hands of the editor.
Okay.
And it's sitting there. So I did see Bobo about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I'm like, Bobo. And he's like, dude, I know what you want to talk about, but I don't want to talk about it right now. I'm like, okay. It's like, get it done, son. So I don't have any control of that, but I'm hoping it's going to come out soon. That being said, a different production company who are good friends of mine, they're Small Town Monsters.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah.
As we speak today and tomorrow, all of the filming for the Ape Canyon project with Small Town Monsters is getting done.
Okay.
We went up in July and did a bunch of field recording at the cabin site and on the mine and all that kind of jazz and Ape Canyon. And then Eli Watson, who's the producer for Small Town, for the past 3 or 4 days, we're doing in-town interviews. We can't go back up there; it's just way too much snow.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of really, really good interviews, a lot of good stuff. So the date for the working title is "The Siege of Ape Canyon" or something like that, and the release is supposed to be like early March.
Okay, yeah, because I do remember, because I think it was either you or Small Town Monsters that actually posted about that.
Mm-hmm.
Of that, it's like, oh yeah, I'm working with Small Town Monsters doing something for Ape Canyon. And I saw that, and I'm like, hell yes, that is awesome. Small Town Monsters is like one of the best people to be working on something like that, especially for Ape Canyon.
Yeah, I've had enough experience with. I don't have a ton, but enough experience with TV and film where I decided I wasn't going to do it. without small town monsters.
Mhm.
So some guy got a hold of me and said, "Yeah, people have talked to me about it before. Yeah, we should do an Ape Canyon production." And I was like, "Okay, forget it." And I called Seth, my friend Seth Breedlove, who's the big dude at Small Town, and I was like, "Some guy wants to do it. It's probably time." Seth and I had been talking about this for years, and I called Seth and said, "It's not now or never, but it's sort of now or never." And he's like, "Let's do it."
Yeah.
And that was right almost about a year ago, and so we've been working on it since.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the 100th anniversary, it's
Absolutely.
like there is no better time to have something like that come out for it.
Yeah, sure.
And when I saw that was coming out, I'm like, I'm so excited for that. Like, that's be fantastic to see.
So I don't know if I can pull this off or not, but what the plan is too is for me to finally finish the big Ape Canyon book, and so
and that's the next question I was going to have for you too.
So that the film and the movie come out about the same time. See the movie and then read the book.
And that leads into my next question I had down here, Mark. How's your book coming along?
Good. I was talking with friends and they're writing as well. And writing a book is hard.
Yeah,
man.
I bet.
There's discipline in the writing, and there's discipline on just being okay with being alone for long periods of time, and frankly, being very, very rude to your loved ones. Like, leave me alone, don't bug me, because that's what writing takes.
Yeah,
and that's hard to find that time. To be rude to people that you love, kind of thing, like leave me alone. But it is coming. And finally, I really have to just pull the trigger and say, okay, I'm done. Stop adding more stuff to it, which I tend to do, which is why it's taken me so long. But anyway, I'm hoping this spring.
Awesome, great. I'm hoping to. I'll keep obviously keep an eye open for your stuff when you talk about it and everything else like that. So really looking forward to seeing that. So what's next for you? Like, what's the after here, and what are you gonna be getting into next?
Well, the two things is that the Thompson Flat monster needs a lot of work. What I often say is that the miners up at Ape Canyon were not at Ape Canyon, but they were working on their gold mining project between 1918 and 1924. That's 6 years.
Yeah.
I've been on the Ape Canyon project for 15 to 20 years to research it. Thompson Flat Monster, the series of strange incidences that happened up there went over the course of about 30 years. So if you use that ratio for Ape Canyon about how long the incident actually happened and how long it took me, I'm going to be dead before Thompson Flat's done. But on top of that, because of the road crossing up at Thompson Flat, because of stories, because of something that we did here up at Thompson Flat, because of the incredible rugged, untouched wilderness that Thompson Flat is, and many, many stories still coming out of Thompson Flat, that needs to be a research area. The hard part is that for me, it's somewhat long distance because it's 6 or 7 hours away from where I live.
Oh, yeah.
So it's hard to find the time to break out a week and, spend some time down there.
Of course.
But it needs a little bit more historical field work done on the stuff that happened down there. So I want to concentrate on that. But I'm kind of going into a foyer of a specialty that I really never have in Bigfoot research, and that's active field research.
Yeah.
Current, concurrent, active field research. But fortunately, I have a lot of friends who keep on giving me really good advice for audio and cameras and different ideas about terrain, how to look at terrain and that kind of thing. But Thompson Flat needs it, so I'm going to be working on Thompson Flat. The other thing is a little bit closer to home. There is a well-known area, maybe about an hour north of me, called Donkey Creek Road, and it's in Grays Harbor County. And Donkey Creek Road has a long, long, long history of encounters with Sasquatch-like creatures. Plus another creature actually showed up that's a little bit more, maybe could be called a dogman, if you will. The eyewitness equated it to stories about skinwalker kind of stuff.
Okay.
So it's up there on Donkey Creek Road. With Donkey Creek, it's on the Hump Tulips River, and oddly enough, I had another Bigfoot historical research project that was given to me that was very interesting, that I was able to identify the site after about 20 or 30 years. And I was thinking about it and looking at the maps, and the Donkey Creek Road and this other place, which is like down right at the ocean. Oh, it's about 20 or 30 miles apart. But when you take Donkey Creek Road and this other side of the ocean called Alexander's by the Sea, 20, 30 miles away, and look at the Hump Tulips and look about what's out there, developed cranberry bogs, old abandoned cranberry bogs, a lot of wilderness, few old orchards. And you trace that, not a direct line between the two sites, but you kind of look in that direction between the two sites. You're in a hotbed of a lot of encounters that have been reported. There was one just about 4 weeks ago. There was another one about a year ago or so. And so this one green space between Donkey Creek Road and Alexander's by the Sea is another one where it's probably going to turn into a concurrent research project over a large area of about 20 or 30 miles.
Wow, so yeah. Sounds like you got some fun stuff going on for you in the near future.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to do.
So might as well like, all right, find a new project. Let's work on that.
Right. Yeah.
Oh well, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
As you got some fun stuff going on,
yeah.
New mysteries to help dig up, and that's what you've always going to be pretty good at too, especially with everything you've done with Ape Canyon. And
yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. There's always lots more to do, and I can't do it all, so someone else has to do it too.
I hear you there. Well, crap, Mark. This was fantastic. Thank you very much for being on the show.
No, thanks for allegedly, air quotes, letting me be your first.
Hey, yeah, I am. You said you wanted to be my very first guest on the show, and I'm like, all right, he's gonna be the very first one.
Thanks,
so
dude.
I wanted to hold on to that too.
Well, I mean, we're the best of friends.
I know.
always love hanging out with you anyway, so we might as well record.
Hell yeah, and of course it's only Friday. We still got 2 more days of awesome this.
I know, totally.
So I guess let everyone know, where can people find you, follow you, and stuff like that.
I should be better about this, but a friend has actually developed a website for me.
Okay.
And I'm not in control of it, so I have to bug my friend to update it. It's a monsterhistory.net. Monsterhistory.net. My name, Marc Myrsell, on Facebook. If you go on Facebook, it'll probably be easy to unfriend me in about a day or two. All the stuff I put on there.
No, keep following him. He's got good stuff.
And those are the two easiest ways to check me out or get a hold of me.
Well, awesome. Well, Mark, again, thank you very much for being on the show, my very first guest, and we're almost at an hour and a half, and this was fantastic. Honestly, I would keep going, but unfortunately, we can't keep this up forever. But hopefully someday, when you find out more about the sign and everything else like that, hopefully you come back. Maybe you can tell us some more. I'd love to have you. Love to have you back on the show again another day in the future.
Yeah, no, let's do it.
And hear more about the sign, because that story you told me, you've never told me that story before, so that's brand new to me. Yeah. And this sign blew my mind away. So that's really cool. Hopefully we hear some more about it in the near future.
Well, let's meet back here in Kentucky next year.
Hell yes! Yeah, everyone. We'll be back with another Marc Myrsell episode next year in Kentucky. Actually, in September. CryptidCon's going to be in September next year.
Oh, is it good?
Yeah, they said that their next official they're gonna do it in September now, like beginning of September.
Okay, well that'll be helpful because there's another conference on the same weekend that somebody wanted me to go to, so I go to both.
So now you know that it goes. Well, everyone, that is Marc Myrsell, the fantastic guy we got here today, known for Ape Canyon, and I hope everyone has a good day. Stay safe, like, share, comment, subscribe, all the normal YouTube-y stuff, and remember, keep your ears and eyes open for the creepiness in store, because you never know what you'll find outside of your door. This has been Cryptid Talk with Michael Madden and my guest, Marc Myrsell. Have a good day, everyone. Stay safe. Love you all.